I wanted to read an article out to you that came out about a year ago. In fact, it's almost exactly a year ago now, since the Democrats or the socialists have taken over the U.S. Looks like they're trying to hit on Puerto Rico on these tax benefits that's there. I'm going to read a letter out to you and hit on some points here. If you're thinking about actually taking part in the Puerto Rico tax advantages of Act 20 and 22, you probably should look at this article. It came out in the Miami Herald back in December of 2019. But it basically stated that congressional Democrats take aim at Puerto Rico's role as a tax haven for the wealthy. It looks like they're really going to be attacking this program. They're either going to amend it to where it's not going to be very good anymore, or they're going to try to eliminate it from what it sounds like here. But it said that congressional Democrats on Friday took aim at Puerto Rico's role as a tax haven. When I say Friday, this was a year ago, but now since the Democrats are in office, they're going to probably be hitting on this quite a bit now. But it stated here that they were asking the U.S. Treasury to investigate if the struggling island, and they're talking about Puerto Rico, is helping the wealthy dodge federal and state taxes with little apparent benefit to the local economy. In a letter to Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, 4 representatives asked for information regarding 2 Puerto Rican tax incentives, which were the Acts 20 and 22 that were passed in 2012 with the goal of luring wealthy individuals and service-providing companies to the island. It stated here that beneficiaries of the measures pay virtually no income tax if they reside in Puerto Rico at least half the year. In addition, most Puerto Rican residents are exempt from federal income tax. The laws have enabled high-income individuals and profitable service businesses to avoid any federal or territorial taxation on some income and to owe extremely low rates of tax on other income, the lawmakers wrote. And they stated here that by residing on the island for 183 days a year, these individuals now can avoid both federal and local taxes. Well, actually, you don't even have to stay 183 days. If you can, there's 4 other tests which I've given on other videos. But one of them is you don't have to even stay in the U.S. As long as you don't stay in the U.S. more than 90 days in a year, you also pass the test. So you could literally be, outside of Puerto Rico more than 183 days and still qualify if you qualify on that 90-day test, not being in the U.S. more than 90 days. Anyway, it said here that that this results in tax benefits that individuals and businesses could not obtain anywhere else in the world, which is true, except unless you relinquish. You will have better benefits if you relinquish. They're talking about if you're staying a U.S. citizen. But it is probably the best tax-exempt program if you're going to stay a U.S. citizen. But I don't think this is going to last because of this. It says here, in other words, Puerto Rico has become a tax haven from the federal government. It says the letter was signed by Representatives Jose Serrano, Nadia Velazquez, Raul Guerralova, and guess who else? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And she's probably going to be really hitting on this program now since the Democrats have gotten in office. But one of the things it talks about here, it says that that the Act 20 and 22 have turned Puerto Rico into a tax haven with little or no benefit for the vast majority of Puerto Ricans. Representative Serrano said in a statement, the Department of the Treasury should conduct greater oversight over how these tax breaks are being implemented and their impact on the federal, state, local, and territorial tax revenues. Puerto Ricans need greater transparency and accountability regarding these choices. It said here that Puerto Rico, a U.S. territory of 3.2 million, is staggering under more than $70 billion in debt and has been caught in a decade-long recession. The economic malaise, particularly in the wake of Hurricane Maria in 2017, has led to an exodus from the island. Now, it stated here that when this was actually rolled out in 2012, the tax incentives were seen as a way to attract companies and individuals who might create jobs on the island, where unemployment is running about twice the national average. And then it stated here that according to a report issued by Puerto Rico's Department of Economic Development and Trade, that 2,202 individuals had moved to Puerto Rico to take advantage of Act 22. Of those, 1,233 were from the United States, including 122 Floridians, more than any other state. The study found that Act 22 guarantees had bought $1.3 billion worth of real estate and planned to make $679 million in capital investments. In addition, the guarantees generated an additional $40 million in tax revenue during the life of the incentive. But the lawmakers said that the wealthy are receiving breaks not available to all Puerto Ricans, and at a time when the island needs the tax revenue. And they questioned if some individuals and companies were gaming the system by lying about the time they spent on the island and creating pass-through companies that didn't do real work in exchange for the hefty incentives. The evidence strongly suggests certain tax provisions are lining the pockets of wealthy individuals who partially reside in Puerto Rico while doing nothing to benefit the people of Puerto Rico, stated Representative Nadia Velazquez. She's a Democrat from New York, and the Treasury Department needs to take a hard look at these provisions so we can determine whether they are functioning as intended or inadvertently allowing the wealthy to skirt tax obligations and depriving Puerto Rico and the federal government of needed revenue. This is what Representative Nadia Velazquez said. And there's a letter here I'm going to read out to you. But if you get a chance, if you're making at least $150,000 US dollars a year, or you have a net worth of at least $1 million, if you'll go to our website, www.citizenshipquickly.com, hit that top bar if you're interested in getting your income taxes to zero, or how to get a second passport as quick as 3 months. And when you hit the top bar where it says apply with us, a questionnaire will come up, fill those questions out, and then hit the bottom button that says send it to us so we can get back with you to help solve whatever problem that you got. And also, if you hit the subscribe button at the right of your screen here, you'll get new videos as they come out automatically. And also, I'd like to hear from you. If you got a question or comment, just put it below, and I'll be glad to get back with you and see what I can do to solve whatever problem you got. Okay, now this letter was written, it says, it was written to the Congress of the United States, December the 19th, 2019. The Honorable Stephen T. Mnuchin, Secretary of the Treasury, and this was who it was. The letter was written to, and it just stated that, Dear Secretary Mnuchin, we write to request that the Treasury Department conduct greater oversight of a variety of tax breaks provided to individuals and businesses in Puerto Rico and their impact on federal tax revenues. In particular, they're talking about Acts 20 and 22, the Puerto Rico, that have led to significant tax avoidance by wealthy individuals residing on the island. While some have tried to promote these as tax breaks as economic development tools, we believe that these are giveaways that basically have resulted in huge tax benefits for the wealthy and have not resulted in benefits to Puerto Rico. As you know, the federal tax history of Puerto Rico is extremely complicated for both businesses and individuals. Since 1954, federal income taxes have been extended to income earned in Puerto Rico as specified in IRC 933. Rather, the tax goal has been to allow the territorial government to tax the revenue sources directly as levels necessary to overcome the lack of equal treatment in the federal funding programs. However, as Puerto Rico's fiscal status has declined, its recent tax policies appear to undermine the federal goals of IRC 933. And then it's stated here in 2012, the territorial government enacted 2 laws, Act 20 and 22, potentially in violation. This is the part you need to look at. They're talking about potentially in violation of the uniformity clause of the Constitution of Puerto Rico, with the goal of luring wealthy individuals and businesses providing services in the states to Puerto Rico. These laws exempt these individuals from almost all local taxation if they reside on the island for a majority of the year. Under the laws, numerous tax exemptions and rate reductions are granted until 2035 with little economic justification. The beneficiaries are not required to make significant specific economic contributions to the territory or even any contribution that justify any tax savings at all. The result is the combination of the federal and territorial tax laws have enabled high-income earners, basically individuals, to profit from service businesses to avoid any federal or territorial taxation on some income and to owe extremely low tax rates on other income. By residing on the island for 183 days a year, actually the person can actually reside a lot less than that, as I mentioned before. This is the key thing that that they're not bringing out, is you can almost, like I said, if you're in the U.S. Up to 90 days in a year, and you don't exceed that, you can be anywhere. You can be in Puerto Rico. You can be in other countries. It doesn't make any difference. And these are the key things that that they're trying to hit on, is virtually you don't even have to hardly live in Puerto Rico by hitting on one of these 5 rules that they've got. But they talked about here that by residing on the island for 183 days per year, these individuals now avoid both federal and local taxes. This results in tax benefits that individuals and businesses could not obtain anywhere in the world. In other words, Puerto Rico has become a tax haven from the federal government. For example, under Act 20, individuals do not have any tax to any government on gains from buying and selling stocks and bonds in the states. Under Act 22, individuals and their firms that provide services in the states from the territory pay an income tax rate of 4%. It says here that the territorial tax exemptions granted to these wishing to avoid federal taxes stands in stark unfavorable contrast with the treatment of longtime Puerto Ricans and most other individual and corporate residents of the territory. Most individuals and locally owned corporations pay high rates of local tax. There are many other concerns associated with Acts 20 and 22. The better treatment of Act 20 and 22 beneficiaries is not limited to taxes. They also have been exempted from territory inheritance tax, which may have implications for federal estate taxation. There reporting are more than 1,600 individuals and firms who have relocated from the states to Puerto Rico in order to avoid the federal, state, and local taxes. A few years ago, a territorial official said that the smaller number of individuals then included 2 billionaires, and that the average net worth of Act 20 and 22 beneficiaries was $7 million US. We understand that the IRS is aware of cases which businesses in the states route their services through front firms in Puerto Rico that do no real work. We have also heard of a case in which an individual avoided $60 million a year in taxes. It's stated here that there are questions as to whether Act 22 beneficiaries are really present in Puerto Rico 183 days a year as required by IRC 937. The combination of the federal and territorial tax exemptions is not only depriving the territorial government of revenue intended by IRC 933, but it also appears to do so without any showing of economic benefits. Additionally, Acts 20 and 22 deprive the federal, state, and local governments of needed revenue. In order to better understand the impact of these policies, we respectfully request the department, and these are the things that they're going to be checking on. Evaluate whether the Section 933 benefit should apply to individuals and firms that relocate from the states and obtain Acts 20 and 22 benefits. And number 2 is examine the enforcement of Section 937 by the IRS territorial officials. And number 3 is determine whether Section 933 is accomplishing its purpose, specifically in the case of these avoiders of taxes in the states, or whether it should be amended. And then number 4 is calculate the revenue cost to the territorial government as well as to the federal, state, and local governments. And number 5 is investigate how the Section 937, 183 days a year, presence in the territory requirement is being enforced by the IRS and the territorial government and the effectiveness of their monitoring. And then number 6 is analyze whether Section 937 should be amended to enhance its effectiveness, whether the territorial inheritance law exemption for Act 22 beneficiaries is adversely affecting federal, state, and generation skipping taxation, and whether U.S. law should be amended. And number 7, consider whether the territorials or territories' tax exemptions comply with the requirement in its constitution that taxes be uniform. All right, now these are things they're going to be hitting on, and all 4 of these people sign this letter. So I think the socialists, which are the Democrats, are going to be hitting on this hard for 2021 and forwards. So if you're thinking about doing this and you're going to be making this international move, why not just move outside the country totally and then relinquish if you're going to be living outside the U.S. anyway, at least the U.S. states. Anyway, I would be getting a second passport as insurance purposes in case they amend this and it's totally overturned, or Puerto Rico becomes a state. If Puerto Rico becomes a state, as I mentioned on other videos, you're looking at a Puerto Rican tax rate on income as high as 33%, which they have now. But then you got the federal tax of the U.S., which is going to be making Puerto Rico tax more than any state in the U.S., including California and New York. Anyway, if you get a chance, if you go to our website, www.citizenshipquickly.com, if you want to legally get your taxes to zero, how to get a second passport as quick as 3 months, do 3 things. Hit the subscribe button at the right of your screen and you'll get new videos as they come out automatically. And number 2 is I'd like to hear from you if you got a question or comment. And then you can also go to our website, www.citizenshipquickly.com, hit the top bar that says apply with us. Questionnaire will come up, and then fill that out, and then hit that bottom button that says send it to us so we can help you get started. We deal with a lot of citizenship by investment, residency by investment countries I think you'd be interested in learning about all over the world. Folks, if you really want to break your tax ties, the only way to do it is to relinquish. That's the only way. Otherwise, you're always at the whims of the government of the U.S. changing the tax laws. Anyway, I look forward to talking to you on the next video. Take care.